Today we've got one of the most luxurious cuts of beef, and that is a tomahawk ribeye. This one in particular is a certified Piedmontese. This is a grass-fed, grass-finished. That means this is super lean, but then again, it has some great marbling and fat. Now when it comes to this, these are expensive. Doesn't matter where you get them. I'm gonna show you the delicate methods required to make an awesome smoked and seared tomahawk ribeye. Stick around, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. When it comes to searing and smoking steaks, many of us are very familiar with the reverse seared method. Now I'm gonna tell you, I have done the reverse seared method for a long time, and I've always gotten great results, especially because I have good instant read thermometers. Now, because I'm working with an expensive, and because this is a grass-fed and grass-finished piece of beef, we have to be very careful that we don't overcook it, especially because this is like upwards of $80 for one steak. Why in the world would I want to risk it? And I know there's a lot of you out there that also are kind of timid when it comes to expensive cuts of beef. So I'm going to show you a foolproof method where you can cook an awesome steak with very little risk of overdoing it. Now first, let me get this thing opened up. Now the nice thing with certified Piedmontese is that they vacuum seal all of their beef and it keeps it nice and fresh. Now it comes frozen, typically with dry ice in the package, and that just ensures that there's no problems in the shipping process. Now I keep this nice and frozen in my freezer from the time I get it up until about a day or two before it's time for me to cook it. So I've had this thawing for the last 2 days in the refrigerator since this is a little bit thicker cut. But we're gonna go ahead and get this open. It's nice and thawed now. Now, one of the best parts about getting my beef from certified Piedmontese is that there's very little prep work, very little trimming, if any trimming at all. As you can see, this tomahawk ribeye is absolutely perfect. There's nothing that I need to do. It's already trimmed back from the bone. We don't have any extra rib meat. It's that perfect tomahawk presentation that you would typically look for. But the one thing that you do need to do is wipe the purge off. So whenever you get a steak, it doesn't matter how it is packaged, you're always gonna have some moisture that follows along in the package. We call that purge. I like to take a paper towel and pat dry that off the best that I possibly can. I'm doing that to remove it so that I can control the moisture on the surface myself. Now that we've got this nice and dry, it's time to prepare it with seasoning, but first I like to use a binder. I like to use a good olive oil, just a little bit as a binder. So pour some of this into my glove. And we're just looking to put a little bit of a shine on every portion of the meat, both sides, around the edges, everything like that. You're just looking for a little bit of a shine. I'm not sure if you can see that on there now, but that's really all we're looking for. Now when it comes to rub, today I'm going to be using the Brock Lesnar blend seasoning from Bearded Butchers. This one here is one of my favorite steak blends. Now because this is a nice thick cut of meat, we can be a little generous with the seasoning. As you notice, I'm purposefully getting some seasoning onto the cutting board as I prepare this. I'll take the back side of my glove, make sure that I pat the seasoning into the steak. Now I'm going to take it and flip it over. I'm going to do the same to this side. A nice, generous coating of the Bearded Butchers Brock Lesnar seasoning. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll the edges of my steak into the excess that's on the cutting board. And we're going to do that just so we don't have a lot of waste, but then I can also touch it up with the shaker just like I'm about to do now, just so that we have a good coverage all the way around. We're gonna let this sit here and sweat for a few minutes while the griddle gets hot on the Camp Chef Woodwind Pro on that Sidekick, and I'm gonna show you my searing and smoking methods that I'm gonna use to make the perfect tomahawk ribeye. All right, this grass-fed, grass-finished tomahawk ribeye is time to start searing it. I've got the Camp Chef Sidekick griddle set to about medium to medium high heat. Now mind you, this is a very powerful burner. I'm gonna use this griddle to put a nice sear on this first. So this is not going to be a reverse sear. And just listen to that sizzle. Oh. Give it a little pressure. I've got the griddle prepped with some South Chicago packing, Wagyu beef tallow. That's giving it a nice wet surface on the griddle, and it's really gonna help with that sear. It's also got a great mouthfeel, so that's gonna help too with every single bite. Now this is a nice thick cut of beef, so it's not gonna cook very fast on this griddle. What we're looking for is the perfect crust, so your desired crust. We've given it a couple minutes on this side. We're gonna go ahead and flip it over, but first take a look and see what that's looking like. Oh yeah, we're getting a nice texture. We're gonna flip this thing over, give it a few minutes on this side as well. Now we want to be very careful when we do this, because as it's starting to cook, you can see there's a little bit of separation between the meat on the bone and the actual ribeye itself. But we want to take it and give a little bit of exposure to that hot griddle all the way around on that steak. That way we get a sear all the way around. Now that we've got a good sear on this steak, it's time to transfer it over to the Camp Chef Woodwind Pro. Now I've got this thing loaded up with some hickory pellets and some hickory hardwood in that smoke box. Now I'm just going to transfer this right onto the grill. Now I've got one of my Camp Chef professional probes that come with the Woodwind Pro. I'm gonna insert this into the center of the ribeye, and we are looking for 126 to 128 degrees internal temperature. Now you're saying, wow, that's pretty rare. Now for a medium rare on a grass-fed steak, it is going to go quick. You're better pulling a little early and letting the carryover get you closer to that medium rare. We're gonna let this go until then. Let's get this lid closed, grab a beer. All right, so I've got my ThermaPen one. We're looking for about 127 degrees internal temperature. Let's go ahead and check this guy right here. We're reading right around that 127, 128 mark. It's time to pull this off. I'll grab it with my tongs here. Look at that steak. That is absolutely gorgeous. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap this with a little bit of foil for the resting period, help lock in that moisture. Now you can use saran wrap, which I've seen Chef Logan do at Camp Chef, and I've also seen some other people do that, but foil should do the trick if you've got it. We're gonna let it rest here for about 5 to 10 minutes. All right, it is time to unwrap this from the rest period in the foil. I am super excited to try this grass-fed, grass-finished tomahawk ribeye. Does that thing look good or what? We're gonna cut into this and give it a try. When cutting into the tomahawk ribeye, the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is hug as close to that bone as possible, and we're gonna remove the steak itself from that bone. This is super tender. It should come off really easily, just like this. Set that bone off to the side, and we are going to cut it just like so. Oh, this thing is incredibly tender. That is perfect, wall-to-wall, medium rare. All right, now it's time to give this a try, and I'm gonna tell you that my favorite piece is the cap of the ribeye, the spinalis dorsi. That is the piece that I'm always grabbing first or saving for the end. And there's no better way to try this tomahawk ribeye than to give that spinalis dorsi or cap of ribeye a try. Wow. That is perfection. That is super juicy. I mean, you saw how perfect that steak looked. There was tons of juices coming out of this. There was juices in the wrapper itself. This is delicious, and it is absolute perfection. Now, by searing it first, we are truly controlling the internal temperature. We're making sure that we do not go over our desired temperature. Typically with a reverse sear, which is the opposite method, you're going to cook this to like 110, 115 and sear it. Now what happens is that super hot sear is gonna produce more carryover temperature, and it's very easy to go past your desired temperature. Especially with an expensive and delicate cut like a grass-fed tomahawk, we wanna make sure that we're removing any possibilities of error, because we don't wanna ruin this and we want our dinner to be absolutely perfect, just like this tomahawk ribeye. And if you're looking for great recipes and more perfection, then I suggest you check out this video right here.